because I still remember as a young kid, even though I wasn't born in '66. Sorry, Becky. I'll be nice. She works incredible hours for us. Even though I wasn't born in '66, I still remember Jimmy Carter, and I remember my parents having a mortgage. And they bought a house in a place called Farmington, Illinois. Well, my dad built the house. He took out what's called a builder's mortgage, I think it's called. So anyway, I remember the incredible interest rates. And finally, in the 80s, when they went down, he remortgaged and was able to pay off the entire note. 20%, 22% was the highest, I believe. It reached about 22, 23% in the late 70s. And we remember the Chrysler bailout and so forth. And a lot of that had to do with a president that may have been a gentleman, may have been brilliant, but at the same time, he was a micromanager. While Reagan allowed people to excel, believed in good people, and gave them opportunities to excel. So that's why I decided to get back into politics after taking a 10-year hiatus. And one of the reasons why I took that 10-year hiatus is because, like it or not, some of you may like this, some of you may not, but here's the deal. I was one of the co-chairs that brought term limits to Michigan. I believe in term limits. I believe that we have problems on both Republican and Democratic side. And I'm tired of hearing politicians, especially our president and everyone else, saying, well, I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat. But yet, when they get to Washington, they vote and toe the party line. I have a record of not towing the party line. And the reason is this. Because I'm just as frustrated with what the Republicans have done for 8 years when they had power, and they built a debt, and they mismanaged the war just like the Democrats, if not more right now. And that's why I said enough is enough. And that's why I'm part of a group called the Freshman 50. Freshman 50, there's more than 50 people running in the Freshman 50. Now it's about 110, so maybe they'll have to amend and change the name. But the group is a group of people that have served in the military, served in business, and are ready to take charge and basically butt Washington. And the number one priority is make laws that are constitutional. Number two, abide by the Constitution. Number three, bring down the national debt. And I hope somebody asks me about our plan, because it's another, I'll throw out some softballs out for you if you want to hear them. But I will tell you this, that the national debt, out of all the issues this president could deal with, because if you remember his State of the Union speech in January 23rd or 21st, I believe it was, he was talking about the fact that the economy is number one issue. If the economy is the number one issue, why would you pass cap and trade? Healthcare, where you just took over one-sixth of the nation's economy. By the way, the government already had 1/6. So now we're talking about 1/3 of the nation's economy being in the government's hands. And that's not counting entitlements. And lastly, why would you deal with social issues in the military? Like eliminating don't ask, don't tell. So I'm ready to hear your questions. That's who I am. I'm 41 years old. I'm angry. I'm frustrated. I feel my country's been sold a bill of goods. I'm running against 3 other Republicans that I did not feel comfortable with, and that I felt that unless we had a good candidate running against this individual that sold us out and lied to us, and I can tell you about that later if you ask me about Gary Peters, because I've known Gary Peters for 18 years. I've known him for 18 years. But here's the thing. I didn't feel comfortable with the people running. I'm tired of politics as usual. You won't see the same type of campaign run out of our campaign. We are about people. And you know what? One thing that Obama got right. You got to hand it to him. They ran an effective campaign because they got their people out to the polls. And that's why we're creating our own MoveOnRocky.org. It's not about me, it's about all of us. Before we go into the questions and answers, if you leave here as a supporter of ours, I'm going to ask you to do one very important thing. And that one very important thing is, be on my accountability team. Join our team tonight if you feel so moved in your heart. If not, that's okay. You've got 4 or 5 other candidates to choose from. But join us if you feel so moved, and hold me accountable to you. So with that, I'm all yours. Any question? Yes, ma'am. And you know why I pick on you?
Why?
Because you're all the way over, like, I could see you from here, and you've got that bright green.
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Peggy Phelps, and
I'm Rocky.
Hi, Rocky. I live in Auburn Hills. I love your picture. Our son, 17 years in Airborne, and is a sergeant major. He's right now.
17 years and he's a sergeant major?
Yes.
Folks, that if you don't know this, sergeant major is the highest enlisted rank that starts with private all the way up to officer. And if you're a sergeant major at 17 years in the military, you are probably the brightest, the top of the class, the sharpest soldier you will ever find in the military. And if he's been there in 17 years...
My question, you said to throw it out there.
Sure.
Tell us about General McChrystal.
General McChrystal. The question is about General McChrystal. I think he should have resigned. I think he should have been fired. My problem, and by the way, I have to say this on the record for a second here, and what I'm going to tell you is this. Nothing that I say here is attributable or is endorsed by the United States Army or the Department of Defense. That's my disclaimer for the evening. Okay. So with that being said, allow me to basically tell you what I think about General McChrystal. Remember how General McChrystal got there in the first place? General McChrystal got there in the first place because of General McDowell had to resign. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. Isn't that ironic, but it's so perfect? General McChrystal threw General McDowell under the bus. General McDowell did not like the policy we were leading in Afghanistan. So, number one, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. Number two, General McChrystal has been a strong supporter, of what's called civil military operations and nation building. That we create friends of our enemies. And I came from the type of military that believes in a couple things. And I know that this may not be the most popular thing, but here's the deal. The military is used to break things and kill people. And if a nation does not have the will to fight a war, it should not fight a war. If a nation does not use, and Sun Tzu wrote this over 5,000 and some odd years ago, he wrote in his book that if a nation does not have the will to fight, and it does not put all of their support behind the military, and lastly, the rules of engagement, does not support the soldiers to fight the war bloodily, then do not go into war, because you will lose.